G'day and welcome to another Parousia podcast. My name is Matthew Hammond-Tague, your host, and with me today is a very special guest, Dr. Paul Morrissey of Campion College in Toongabbie, Sydney. Dr. Morrissey, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So for those that don't know you, you are the president of Campion College, and Campion College is a liberal arts college in Toongabbie, Sydney.
That's correct. Yes, I'm the president of Campion College. I've been at Campion nearly 8 years. So Campion is Australia's first liberal arts college, and it's based a little bit on the model that you'd see in the United States. The students, when they finish high school, they go off to college, and often in the United States it's a liberal arts college. So what we offer is a Catholic, so very much a Catholic liberal arts experience, university level education, focusing on 4 principal areas: history, literature, philosophy and theology. Also we offer the classics, Latin and Greek, as well as some science based in that and possibility of maths. So it's a broad-based education, really in the history and ideas of Western civilization, Judeo-Christian ideas that our civilization is built on. So it's a wonderful curriculum, fully integrated, and really the only place in Australia that this can happen. So we're young, but we're growing, and a very exciting place to be at and to be with, and a great mission. Great Catholic mission.
Excellent.
Here in Australia.
And it sounds amazing. So tell us what the role of the president is all about.
Well, how long have you got?
Do you have the power? This is what I want to know.
It's a very grandiose title, but it's similar to say to a principal at a high school, I guess, but with the added sense of it's a higher education institution. But also we are a startup using sort of contemporary language, really independent. So we rely on very generous benefactors and getting students to come to a place that's not very common to come to in Australia. So that's my principal role. Really is external in some ways.
Okay.
It's fundraising and students, and to help make the college grow in terms of its literal growth, but also its growth in reputation and so on. But obviously there's the day-to-day things as well one has to oversee.
Yeah, and one of the important words there that I heard from you is Catholic. So tell me a little bit about the Catholic life of the college, particularly for students.
Yeah, so we're very proudly Catholic, fully supportive of the magisterium of the church, and that's really important for us. And that is evident in our curriculum. Obviously, particularly in theology, which is Catholic theology that we teach, but also in terms of the life on campus. So we welcome students from all faiths or none, obviously, but most of our students are Catholic. And so we have a chaplaincy program. Most days we have 2 masses during the day, Eucharistic adoration, and lots of outreach. So the students do lots of different things together, prayer groups. They go out to various, Vinnie's vans, catechesis, do the catechist work, those sort of things. So, we have a really good chaplaincy program. But
That's
as I said, we've got, variety of students as well, and we try to meet their needs spiritually as well.
Indeed. And as I understand it, it's a great place where fellow Catholics can meet and form friendships as well. And amongst your student body and your alum, there are some very strong friendships. Is that not right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, obviously that's a time of life when you finish school where lifelong friendships are formed, and because it's a real community of learning. Some really strong friendships are formed. We've had marriages come from Campion, but also religious vocations. So we've had
there you go.
2 priests ordained in the last couple of years.
So is that a selling point? Come to Campion, you may find your vocation.
Not explicitly, but it's naturally happens.
Indeed.
It naturally happens.
Indeed.
Don't want to scare people off.
Indeed.
Necessarily.
Well, so, marriage or priest life. Come to Campion, you may find it. Yeah.
That's right. But it is a real fruit of the work of the college. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I have come into contact a bit with Campion myself, and I may even be becoming a student next year. And we should mention that right now you actually have an early offer scheme, and that's particularly aimed at school leavers. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So
Yeah.
if you're Year 12 or equivalent,
Yep.
looking, what am I going to do next year?
Yeah.
Obviously we'd love to have you at Campion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have an early offer scheme, runs up to, I think, early October.
Mm-hmm.
Please visit our website, you get all the information. But if you get the offer in early, that means the process is quickened for you. You have a place reserved for you
Yep.
in the college, and also an opportunity to apply for scholarships.
Excellent.
Really encourage anyone who's attracted to the idea of a liberal arts degree, is in Year 12 or equivalent, get your application in, and we'd love to speak to you if you've got any questions, and so on and so forth.
And you have students from all around Australia, don't you? You have on-campus accommodation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the real benefits of Campion is it's a residential life for students if they wish, but obviously interstate students live on campus, and we have students from every state and territory in Australia, which is wonderful.
That is, yeah.
So that's a real highlight for those students living on campus together.
What's the application process involved?
I'll really go to the website, but it's the key thing that perhaps makes us a little bit different is we like to see a piece of writing or a motivational letter, just so we get a sense of that. And there's also an academic interview. So with one of our academics, we in a sense really answer any questions a student has. It's not a formal part in terms of you get evaluated on that interview, but it's where you can ask questions and so on and so forth. So it's a very personalised approach to an application rather than just sort of numbers and tick boxes.
Okay.
There are some forms to fill out, but it's the personalised element's really important.
And I understand that with my essay, a simple line saying, I want to study here because Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers and Dr. Robert Haddad think I should, is not going to quite cut it.
No, it's almost. Very good recommendations there. But probably just have to develop that slightly further.
It needs more work?
Yeah, a little
All
bit more work.
This is the advantage.
That's good.
This is the advantage of interviewing you.
In fact, we can make this your interview.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, because I need further education and formation and even spiritual direction. I'm hoping to start interviewing Campion lecturers and on a regular basis. And one of my thoughts was, of course, if they set me an essay question, I can simply invite them on the podcast and ask them that question and perhaps cheat my way to a degree. What say you, Dr. Morrissey?
Well, I prefer we don't use the word cheat, but you're certainly welcome to speak to our lecturers before an assessment is due.
Look, I might be joining a whole bunch of late teens and early 20s at the ripe old age of 48, so I need all the help I can get. So there you go. There's another reason to come to Campion. Come and join an old man on campus.
Having said that, we do have, and I think this is a polite way, mature age students.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And we do have mature age students at Campion, and they love it too. So our students are used to that. But you're right, the majority are school leaver age. Yes.
Excellent. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today is as I say, this journey that I'm about to take, learning even more, and now Parousia is pushing me further into the limelight that I find so uncomfortable, and doing more podcasts. Really, this is about my education, my formation, and my spiritual direction, all of the future podcasts that I'll be doing for Parousia. And I'm taking an audience along on the journey. And as many know, I have a very interesting testimony. I've had a bit of a rough life. I certainly would not wish my life on anyone. And those who have heard my testimony and have heard me speak, because of my life of vice, because of decades worth of habitual sin, they will always hear me say the first step in defeating evil is to name it. Am I correct in that statement?
I think there is a real truth to that. And so and I think your question's really about recognising yourself and your fault, and that's really part of Greek wisdom, even prior to Judeo-Christian. Know yourself.
Indeed.
And know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And self-knowledge is really important. For a Christian, though, it's deeper than that. It's not just self-knowledge in a sense, but it's seeing yourself how God sees you, which is even deeper. But absolutely, I think that's crucial in terms of coming to the Lord. We need to know, recognize what we need to leave. In order to come to Him.
Yeah, in fact, one of your specialities is Christology, and we have a Parousia Academy subject on Christology. And Parousia Academy is a great way to get a bit of a taste for the liberal arts. And if it's something that somebody really enjoys studying, then the great news is that there's a next step, and it's called Campion College. And so part of this recognizing that I'm a sinner, that's just part of the step, but it's also to recognize that Christ is the answer. And so much of defeating the vice in my own life is knowledge of Christ, right?
Absolutely. And so, when we're talking about, I guess conversion, which is a daily thing for everyone.
Ongoing,
really ongoing, it never stops, is that aspect, and that we only truly can defeat sin and be truly flourish and be who we're meant to be through Christ.
Amen. So, what is the answer then to all this vice? But in my case, I left the church when I was 13, and my descent into sin, occurred over a good 10 years or more, and then it was habituated over another 2 decades. So I've got this ingrained habitual vice. So, which I need to now, get rid of, and I can do this through Christ. But how? What is the answer? Because I do find that quite often when I identify the sin, I should not do that, and I think, all right, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Like St. Paul, I end up doing the things that I don't want to do. Anyone who's heard my testimony has heard me say that the pursuit of virtue is in fact the antidote to vice. And that's one of the subjects you talk about, and that's what we're really here to talk about today. So is virtue the answer to vice?
Yeah, well, virtue is the opposite to vice. And so in a sense that it is the answer. Ultimately, as we've already said, Christ is the answer and so on. But virtue, in terms of the moral life, we have vice on one side, virtue on the other.
Okay. They are polar opposites.
They're the opposites. And,
all right.
And in a sense, they mirror each other.
Yep.
One has the goal of the good, and one has the goal of evil.
Is that a definition of virtue, the goal of the good?
Not so much, but it's certainly its end point, or telos, is the good. But virtue, if we're defining virtue, and you talk about habituated, behaviours through vice. In a sense, virtue is the habituated behaviours towards the good. I think we have to be a bit careful to use, habituate's not bad, but sometimes you hear it said that virtue is like a good habit. As long as we just say it's like a good habit, I think that's good. Because a good habit can be a good thing you do, but it's not necessarily terribly virtuous.
Okay.
Like brushing your teeth in the morning and so on. There's a good thing about it, but we're talking something a bit deeper than that. So virtue is an habituated behaviour that actually conforms our character, conforms our person to the good, and makes us who we are. And alternatively, vice does the same. It sort of, in some ways, deforms our character. It's what it's meant to be through habituated behaviour. And so the Catholic tradition has a magnificent teaching about virtue, and very developed over centuries and centuries, taking from the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews, and then bringing the revelation of Christ into that, to making a magnificent theology of virtue in the Catholic tradition, which is really important in moral theology. It's somehow, it got lost a little bit, one might say, after the Council of Trent, where, for good reasons perhaps, but law sort of became the central focus rather than virtue.
Okay.
But, it's been, I think, refound again in these last the last decades, certainly.
There would be a relationship, though, between virtue and law, though, wouldn't there? Because it's virtuous to follow a just law, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So law, it all goes together. So Catholicism, there's always the big ands everywhere.
Yes. So I've discovered.
And is the most important three little letters in Catholicism, because we always try to bring the disparate together.
Yeah.
Very much integrated. The classic ones are faith and reason.
Yes.
Obviously, and we use that in virtue as well, faith and reason, because we can come to knowledge of virtue through reason, natural reason, which the Greeks did. But we also need faith to deepen that and also come to realise, hey, there's these supernatural virtues that are crucial as well for a flourishing human life that the Greeks didn't know about.
Yes.
Because they didn't have any revelation. So this faith and reason are crucial in all areas of Catholic thinking. But, law and virtue are crucial in moral theology. We need it. The law is the map. It's
Yes.
it's where we go. How do we get there? Don't go that way.
Yes.
Avoid that.
Yes.
But virtue helps us to get there for its own sake. In some ways, it's not just a big no's everywhere, but it's a big
There's always a yes, isn't there? There's a yes to the no. Yeah, that is the no, but do this instead.
And I think virtue, the key element of virtue is linked to freedom. So we're called to be free. And that's to someone of the world, that's quite a challenging statement, isn't it? Because it would seem that God's law can be rather restricting. Yes.
I can't do what I want. So how exactly does virtue free us?
Well, I think that's a big topic.
It is.
But
we're going to do more than one interview, don't you worry.
My goodness, we're going to go down some rabbit holes here. But
Yes.
Freedom. I love talking about freedom because everyone's for freedom.
Yes.
Yeah, no one's I don't want any freedom.
Yeah,
People love freedom.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's a really good thing to talk about as Christians. Freedom. They want to be free.
Yeah.
But then to go deeper onto that question, what does that mean, though, freedom? Because for a lot of people, we have and this is there's a deep sort of historical aspect to this in terms of thinking. But for us moderns, the contemporary idea of freedom is a very adolescent idea of freedom. Mm-hmm. So it's when I'm 18, I can do what I like, sort of freedom.
Yep.
And idea of freedom. Certain truths to that, but it's not the whole truth. So God has created us free, which is magnificent. What a gift. Freedom to choose, free will. We're given that. And that's, in a sense, how we imitate God. But it's not the whole story. Because although God says, look, I've created you free to the point where, you can hate me if you like. I haven't created robots to say, yes, God, whatever you say, God, I love you, God. Just as robots. He said, no, I've created free creatures to love me.
Yeah.
And that's the key. We're free to love God. It's not just free to do whatever we like, but we're free to love Him. And the full sense of freedom, the full sense of our happiness is in loving God, in doing His will. And that's what real freedom is. It's not just freedom from restriction, which is an adolescent sort of freedom. It's a true sense of freedom, absolutely. But it's not the whole sense. We're free to love God. We're free to do the good.
Yep.
And that's what makes us happy. And so virtue is a way in which we can be free. Because it's not easy to do the good.
It's not. It's
not easy to do the good.
But I have experienced very personally and painfully the reality of exactly what you're talking about, because I have the disease of alcoholism. And I drank alcoholically from the age of 17. So my alcoholism took a hold very, very quickly. And I'm what in the recovery rooms is often called a binge blackout drinker. So I might be able to handle my drink on night 1 and night 2. I could even handle it for a week, but you never know which night it's going to be where 1 is too many and 100 not enough. And there's this compulsion to drink. It's said that there's a physical, a psychological, and a spiritual component to the disease of alcoholism. So if alcohol touches my lips and I go off into a binge, we've got to ask the question, am I truly free? So as I understand it, prudence for me, or temperance rather, prudence and temperance. Temperance for me, all right, so someone might be able to handle 3 drinks and not get drunk and not commit the sin of drunkenness. But for me, the tiniest amount of alcohol then robs me of that freedom to choose not to drink. Then I'm just off and running, and that is truly not freedom.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And so vice, when it becomes an addiction or a deep seated where it's I don't really have any control, is as you say, lack of freedom.
Yes.
So that's absolutely spot on. And so virtue are those dispositions, if you like, that we learn, behaviours that we learn that help us to be free. So if you don't mind, I can talk just briefly about those and you've mentioned prudence and temperance.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I can springboard into that.
Well,
idea.
let's go back in time because you mentioned that the Greeks had some idea of virtue.
Yes.
So let's start there, and we'll get to the theological virtues later. How many virtues were there in the Greek world?
Well,
and who was talking about?
Yeah. Well, Aristotle is the great virtue thinker in the ancient world, and in terms of the sort of talk about the 4 natural virtues or 4 cardinal virtues. So prudence, temperance,
fortitude, and justice.
Yes, correct.
I'm the student here, so I
very good.
I'm looking for gold stars.
Look at that.
Looking for affirmation from my
Very
mentor.
good.
Yes, thank you.
So these virtues. So just a word about natural. So they're natural in the sense that now, in some ways, and this is a massive question in Catholic theology. So we're not going to go there.
Okay, good.
But the whole relationship between nature and grace is a big question and controversial topic in Catholic theology. And but when we talk about natural virtue, obviously we're not saying that these virtues happen completely divorced from God, or but they're natural in the sense that that we can understand them and try to live them really without necessarily knowing God.
Okay.
So like the Greeks. No. So these 4 natural virtues, as we've already said, so the key one is prudence or wisdom. And that's moral knowledge. So it's actually knowing what's good. And that's obviously very important.
This is where my name the evil.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
Is a step in being able to defeat it.
So it's not good to do that.
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah.
So so with wisdom, moral knowledge, obviously. So this is a key aspect of the natural virtues. Is we need a teacher. So the natural virtues are taught and learnt. That's the first thing with natural virtues. So childhood's really important with the virtues, that you learn. There's moral knowledge. Don't steal. Don't do that. There's a lot of don'ts in that early stage, and that's really important. That's moral knowledge in which we learn things. Don't shoot someone. That's a good start. So it's this moral knowledge. We also learn it from experience.
Okay.
And that's a key aspect.
Yeah.
It's experiential, both by doing the wrong thing,
yes,
but also by doing the good.
Yeah.
So this is how we develop the natural virtues, and the crucial period is childhood and adolescence, because how we are as human beings is that our personality, our character is very much formed, from that early period up to adulthood. And so that's a key aspect of learning.
Wow.
In a sense, and living the natural virtues.
I'm seeing a very strong argument there for school leavers to attend Campion College.
Absolutely.
And learn these virtues.
Learn them, yes. Before it's too late.
Exactly. When is too late?
Well,
because here am I
yes.
at age 48. So if this is stuff that I've learned from a child and through teens and early adulthood, there doesn't seem a lot of hope for me.
Yeah, so it's a very, very good question. So for the Greeks, they'd probably say, well, there's no hope.
Right. Thanks, Aristotle.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but it sort of makes sense because, and this is psychologically. I mean, in a sense, and science sort of tells us now, neurological science is that our brain is sort of plasticized and develops with the virtues or vices.
Yes.
And that's where, when you talk about that lack of freedom, it's because your brain has been sort of, in some ways, hardwired to say, wow,
because it's problem solving, isn't it? The first time I used dishwashing liquid to clean the dishes, my brain is set on a pathway to say, when we have dirty dishes, apply this, and there's a solution.
Absolutely.
So quite often with a lot of people who develop the disease of alcoholism, there's some sort of underlying reason. So for me, it was an undiagnosed anxiety disorder. So I drank, and I discovered that my anxiety disappeared. So my pathway is now set that when anxiety rises, pick up a drink. That's the solution.
So
but I've been habituated to a vice in doing so.
So that's where it's, and we're all different. So we all have different, and that's the beauty of, creation and the human person. But I think it's a key aspect of the idea of virtue is this, I guess, this psychological dimension, which is being borne out with neurological science. And so to get back to, how late's too late, but it's also, it's true in the sense of, the older you get, the harder it is to change your ways. We'll talk about that.
We should probably mention that if you are 48 or older, don't worry, there is hope. We'll get there.
So it's very true. I know for myself, if something's changed, I think, it's hard to, whatever it is, can be very simple things, even the way that, the table's set. Why isn't there? Put it on that side.
That's right.
It's just, that's how we are as humans.
Yeah.
And the older we get, the sort of more set we are. And there's good to that, but there's also not so good. We're all called to keep changing and growing and so on.
Yeah.
To get back to the question about, so certainly in those formative years are crucial.
Yeah.
So it can be that it's sort of too late in a sense to naturally learn temperance, for example, or naturally learn sort of moral fortitude and so on and so forth. It can, in a sense, physiologically be too late.
Yeah. Yes.
But this is where, Christianity offers, hope, like literal hope. And we'll get to the theological virtue of hope later, but perhaps. But in terms of, living the virtues, we can have what's called infused virtues.
Yeah.
And so we really pray to the Lord and say, Lord, I haven't learned the virtue of temperance.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
But, I need it. I need to be free to be able to serve you. So please give me the...
Amen.
And that's our hope.
Yes.
So Christ is not going to leave. Well, bad luck, buddy.
That's right.
You're 18.
Yep.
You're on your own now.
Yep.
And you haven't learned them, so bad luck.
Yes.
Now, it's not to say, the thorn can always be in the side, and that's
Indeed.
the cross, and that's,
Yes.
and the Lord is merciful, thank goodness.
The bottom line is that it's better to learn it young
absolutely
than try later in life to receive it
absolutely
truly infused. And I am a living example.
Yeah, because it's, when we have the virtue, it's so much easier. Because you're not sort of thinking about every moral question. You're a lot freer.
Yeah.
So you're naturally, in some ways, doing the good. Now, it's not to say there's moral issues and difficulties. There's always that, and there's always sin around. But it is so much easier to live one's life. Yeah. And even on a natural sense. It's a lot easier to be married, if you've learned some virtues.
Yes,
naturally.
Absolutely.
You don't want to be praying every night, please infuse me with patience, infuse me with temperance, infuse me with, you don't want to be doing that every day. So it's, to have those, it's very important to hold down a job.
Yeah.
You need natural virtues.
Yes.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So to learn them is crucial to live a life, really. It's not the end, in a sense it's the last word, but it's really important. And a crucial dimension. So I think you're absolutely right. Now, I think one example, and perhaps pertinent to you, and you probably know of Matthew Matthew Talbot.
Yes, very familiar.
Which is an example that's been used. I've read about in talking about infused virtue, because his story was an alcoholic, very young age, son of a publican, one of 12 kids or something, and had a big conversion, sort of late teenagers, and never touched a drink after that. But whenever he saw a drink, he suffered.
Yeah.
He didn't have the natural virtue of temperance, but he had the infused virtue of temperance.
Yes.
So he's free of it, but it was still a suffering.
Yes.
It didn't leave him because he didn't have the natural, there's a drink, I'll have a couple of drinks, it'll be fun, and then I'll leave it. No, he saw the drink, I can't have that drink. And the Lord gave him the strength not to have it.
Yeah.
But it was still a suffering.
It is.
So it's the difference.
Yeah,
in
it
that.
is.
But there's hope,
Yep.
and he lived a great life of heroic virtue.
Indeed.
And so that's the beauty of our faith on those questions.
Yeah, okay. So getting back to the cardinal virtues, we've talked a little bit about prudence or wisdom.
Yes. So that's a moral knowledge.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll talk about justice. So justice is a foundational virtue, one of the cardinal virtues, obviously. And justice is again a bit misunderstood.
I've heard one definition that justice is giving to another that which is due.
That's a perfect definition.
Okay.
I was just about to say that.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. I'm trying to impress my mentor.
Yeah, or what is owed to the other in a sense.
Yeah.
So justice is a bit of, well, you owe me something, you've got to give it to me. And you think, that's a bit, what's so virtuous about that? But it is in a deeper sense because, what do we owe to God?
Yes.
Well, we owe God everything.
Everything.
So this is why St. Thomas says that worship is an act of justice.
Yeah.
It is right and just.
Which means liturgy is an act of justice.
It is right
which is why
and just.
That line is in our liturgy.
It is
Absolutely.
right and just.
Yeah.
So it's always and everywhere to give you thanks because we owe everything to God. So worship is an act of justice. So what do we owe God? Everything. What do we owe our parents? We owe them a lot.
Yeah.
So when we're growing up, we owe them obedience, loyalty, love. When we're older, we don't necessarily owe them obedience. It's changed. We certainly owe them loyalty and so on. Yeah. So what do we owe our employer? What do we owe our students? What do we owe my spouse? What do I owe the state? Taxes follow just laws, that sort of thing. So justice is really about relationships, and wisdom helps us determine where, the balance of that.
They're all kind of
they're very much so. The virtues,
they influence each other.
The virtues,
right?
are together.
Yep.
And it's true that in some areas we may be stronger than others and more developed, but they're all in there together. So, we maybe, I owe everything to God. So you think, okay, well, all right, I'm just going to pray 24/7. But then your wife comes and knocks on the door and says, hey, honey, what are you doing? And then, wisdom, I do owe my wife something.
Yeah, yes.
Daddy, yes, boss, okay, I'll be right there, and so on and so forth. So there's all these demands on us. We owe to different people, different institutions, different things, and that's justice. Helps us work that out. But the other point to say about justice, and this is, I guess, more in the Christian sense, is that in the Old Testament and in the ancient world, justice was really an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You've wronged me there, I'm going to take it back. You wrong me, I'll take it back. You wrong me, I'll take it back. So Christianity revolutionised justice. Didn't do away with it. God is perfectly just. Never did away with justice, but revolutionised it in the sense that we see justice and we trump it with mercy.
Yeah.
So you've wronged me.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't take this. You haven't wronged me.
Of course.
But, you've wronged me. And, I should, I want something in return. I want to think, I'll forgive you. And so it sees that, so forgiveness is very much a Christianization of justice and the idea of mercy. That God is merciful and that we need to be merciful also is that pointer. And it's so that's also always important, even though the natural virtue of justice is really that sort of natural idea.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Christianity has
Yes.
sort of, in some ways, revolutionised justice.
In fact, would it be correct to say that there can't be mercy if there isn't justice?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where it's important that there, again, it's never either or in
Yeah.
Catholicism.
Yeah.
It's both and.
Yeah.
And justice, the church teaches that a society has to be just. And mercy is really important for an individual. And the church is merciful. But for a state, it's more complicated.
Yeah.
So Tolstoy, famously, said, "Oh, we should govern a society by the Beatitudes,"
Okay.
but completely wrong-headed. Because we need a prison, for example,
Okay.
because,
Yes.
to keep people safe.
Yep.
We need a police force. We need, because there is original sin,
Yep.
and people do bad things to others, and the state's,
Yep.
one of the primary purposes of the state is to protect its citizenry. So it can't just say, "Oh, so you've murdered and you've raped, and, we forgive you. Just go back and, it needs to protect." So
Yes, of course.
So there's that point. But as Christians, we know that, even though the state has that role in justice, that we need to be able to forgive. That's as Christ calls us to forgive. And that God is truly merciful. If we say we're sorry, He'll forgive us. Full of mercy. But it's, we need to recognise we're a sinner.
Amen.
It's not just,
That's right.
I'll just keep sinning and God's merciful.
Yeah.
No, there's a point of conversion needed.
Yeah. Yeah. That describes me very well. All right. So that's two of the cardinal virtues.
Yes.
Where would you like to go next?
That's a very good question. Why don't we go to temperance? So, we've spoken a little bit about temperance,
We have,
but
yes.
temperance is basically self-control. And so as animals, we are animals, humans. We survive through eating, drinking and sex as a species. And so temperance is particularly concerned with those, particularly, but it's other things as well, obviously.
Yep. In the modern world, it can include television, sport,
Yeah, everything, anything
games.
basically, really.
anything that takes up our time.
Yeah,
Is
anything.
that-
It also, so this is where it's, justice is obviously intertwined as well.
Yeah,
and
prudence.
So all comes together. And
Yeah.
But in particular things where our passions, our emotions are naturally driven towards something, because that's how we survive as animals. We're rational animals, but we're animals. Temperance is the rationalisation or bringing reason to those animal passions.
Okay.
And saying, okay, you can have a drink, you can eat,
Yep.
sex is good,
Yes.
but hang on a second, how as a rational being
Yeah.
are these ordered to what is good and
Yeah,
worthy of human
so-
life and flourishing?
So at this time and this place,
Yep.
Is this good that
Yep.
I'm pursuing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is it truly a good, or
Yep.
or am I
Yep.
going into the area of sin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, everything in creation's good.
Yes.
God created it good.
Yeah.
But whenever it's out of its place in our pursuit of whatever it is,
Yeah.
then that's it can be sin.
Yeah.
It's looking for the right thing in the wrong place.
Yeah. And are we potentially turning these natural goods, our pursuit of them, into idols as well? Because I often hear that people say that we can idolize sex, we can idolize sport and films and all this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything that's not of God, we
So
can
here
idolize.
comes justice again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's
Are we giving to Hollywood what we should be giving to God?
So
Yes.
recreation is a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
As in, and leisure's a good thing, and entertainment's a good thing, and so on, in its own way. But it's it has to be in the right order.
Yeah.
So it's not Sunday mass or the football. It's, football. Going to football is not a sin, but if you do it in place of going to mass,
Yes.
that's obviously a problem.
Yeah.
So it's that right order. But yeah, temperance is particularly, and we know that ourselves, don't we? With food, drink, sexual pleasure, those things that give pleasure naturally, because if they weren't pleasurable, we wouldn't survive as a
Yes.
species. So they do give us pleasure. So temperance is particularly concerned with those, but all areas of life where we need some self-control. It's,
Okay.
Patience, for example, is a really good, important aspect of temperance, really.
In fact, all those goods, we tend to talk about the sub virtues, don't we?
Yes,
That
there's
all
lots
these
of
goods kind of relate back to some of the main ones.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, in the Greek world in particular, there were different schools of thought with regards to these natural virtues, wasn't there?
Yeah, so, like in any sort of intellectual system, there's different ideas and different ways. And the Greeks is a different world too. And, in some ways far removed from us, but also very close to us. And obviously a great civilization, a great thinking civilization. And we owe so much to their wisdom, their natural wisdom, which obviously didn't know Christ. But certainly plays into. I mean, the greatest synthesis of virtue thinking was Thomas Aquinas, and obviously he built a lot on Aristotle, his virtue thinking.
Yes.
But it's a mistake to say, look, he just took Aristotle and added a bit. No, Aquinas is the king of virtues, and obviously used Aristotle somewhat, but obviously gave a fully developed theology of virtue.
Because he had that revelation.
Yeah, well, the
Christ.
Revelation, but also I think a deeper understanding of the natural virtues as well.
All right. So how did the concept of virtue develop then in the Roman world, which is after the Greeks?
Yeah, so the Romans were perhaps less concerned with that. It was intermingled a bit. So for the Romans, virtues, more sub-virtues, would be things like loyalty. Loyalty was paramount for the Romans. And a sense of civic virtue for Romans, to do what's good for Rome and so on, was really important. So they had that sense. They also had in some ways, an idea of the common good.
Okay.
Romans were great at building, great at empire building, and great at connecting their empire. Road builders and to police the seaways, and that's why, in fact, that's why Christianity spread so quick. It was, providentially, it's happening within an empire that was very easy to get around at the time. It was, they had roads.
Yes.
It was a lot easier, to go somewhere.
That's right.
With a road, it's a lot quicker.
Trading systems. And,
very much. And so even though Paul suffered, in his great missionary journeys, he did a lot without, without too many worries.
So was there a bit of a de-evolution of the natural virtues then from the Greeks to the Romans? Did someone like Aquinas draw on Roman thinkers, or was it more highly developed in the Greek?
Much more than the Greeks. And much more. He was an ally with the Greeks far more than the Romans. And that was tended to be. So the Romans, they were very practically minded rather than sitting around thinking about. And again, we're dealing with massive stereotypes here.
Of course.
But in the sort of history of thought,
yes, of course,
characterise that. And but then obviously they're Christianised as well. I think we're missing one of the fortitude. Fortitude. We haven't
about. Yes, we haven't. So fortitude is also known as courage, isn't it?
Yeah. So really about.
And that was important for the Romans.
Yeah. So courage, definitely. Perhaps more physical courage than moral courage. Although it's interesting that there's a lot of converts due to Christian courage because they saw, they would die for their faith. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. So there was that natural admiration for this act of courage of these Christians, martyrs, and those who suffered for their faith.
And as I understand it, courage is not being fearless, but rather doing what is fearful in spite of the fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes?
So there's not a lot of courage involved if you're not feeling any fear.
Yes.
So that's just, naturally...
It's good to know that I'm being courageous right now. Okay.
So the natural daredevil.
Someone,
bungee jumping, I love bungee jumping, jumps off. There's not a lot of physical courage there. For me to bungee jump, that is, that's beyond, beyond courage.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that sort of thing. But we're particularly talking about moral courage here. And I think it's important to say too that this virtue of courage is mostly not so much a battle against others, but a battle against ourselves. You know, our own fear.
Yeah.
The fear of the other.
Yeah.
The fear of failure, the fear of this. And we say, well, okay. No, I'm still going to do it. Even though, you know, society's saying, you know, it's fine, don't worry about it. And it may be hard for you to do, you're still going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's moral courage.
Wow.
So it's a lot deeper, and usually it's a battle against you know, my own will.
Yeah. And so all of these natural virtues or cardinal virtues are now elevated and perfected through the theological virtues. Is that correct?
Yeah. So so the theological virtues, which St. Paul writes about, are faith, hope, and love. So they're theological or supernatural in the sense that they are given. So I spoke before about, you know, these natural virtues, you learn them and you live them.
Yep.
So these theological virtues are given at baptism.
Okay.
So we receive them.
And as I understand it, at baptism we're given all of the faith, hope and love necessary for salvation. And so when we pray for an increase in faith, hope and love, what we're praying for is really a stirring up of what is there already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we receive them, you know, they're in our soul. So just like the natural virtues become part of who we are.
Yeah.
They become truly part of who we are. The theological virtues are there at baptism.
Yep.
Who we are. And you're right. So for a Christian, it's really important. This is the virtue idea of these, is that they're still practiced.
Yeah.
So like the natural virtues, you need to live them. So we may have the supernatural gift of faith, but if you don't pray,
yes,
it's going to it'll be there.
This is with all grace, isn't it? We have the ability to, even though it's a free gift, I mean, we can take a gift, not leave it unwrapped and place it on a shelf.
Yeah.
And we're never using the gift.
And we're not cooperating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So faith is a classic one. So it needs to be exercised. And so without that exercise, it's just going to fall limp like a dead muscle. And it needs reactivating at some point.
Yep.
So this is again where, you know, education is really important in these virtues as well. So and at the early stage, it's more about discipline. Again, discipline is that doesn't have a great name, discipline. You know, he's very disciplined. What a strict disciplinarian he is. But discipline comes from the word disciple. So we need a master.
Yep.
So, you know, hopefully our parents can really teach us the faith. But otherwise, you know, school or whatever can teach us the faith. So that, and then by living that, so learning it, but living it is crucial. You can learn it all you like, but if you're not living it, then that faith will hopefully, you know, the muscle will develop and continue through adulthood. I think one of the tragedies of catechesis of recent years is that the education in the faith has not developed as much as the child grows. It sort of remained. And so I think a lot of people enter adulthood with almost like a primary school level idea of who God is.
Okay.
And that, I think that's a problem on an intellectual level. So it's a lot easier to leave the faith, say, you know, when you go to uni at 19 and you still think that God is sort of sitting on a cloud with a beard. And you think, well, no, he's not. So I don't believe him.
Yeah.
But the church doesn't teach that. It may, you know, when you're in year 2, it might say, look at, you know, here's a picture of God and, you know, Father Christmas. It's a bit similar. So, you know, and everyone in year 2, I love God, you know, and God's up there and he's like Santa. But then when you're 18, it's not such a, it's not a real picture. You stopped believing Santa a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier. So I think that's a real issue, but I suppose that's another rabbit hole we can go down.
Indeed, we need to move on to hope and love. So let's talk about hope.
So hope is again, it's a supernatural virtue. So our world can feel a bit hopeless in a sense.
Indeed.
And you can be an optimist, you can be a pessimist, but hope never fails. It's that I guess it's a virtue that keeps our chin up. You may have heard that expression, keep your chin up.
Yep.
And sort of a sense of optimism.
Yeah.
Things are going bad, put your chin up.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it's true with hope because you're looking to the horizon. You're looking to eternity rather than at your navel. At your, just looking inwards and saying, oh, woe is me. The world is going to the hell in a handbasket.
Can be very tempting, even
very,
for faithful Catholics.
Oh, very.
In the modern
Look
world,
at the world.
Look at the way the church is.
Look at this.
Where,
Look at my
where
parish.
are our
Look
leaders?
at this.
Where are our heroes?
What's happening?
Yes. Yep.
Look at the state of the world. Look at my state. Look at my headache. And
So,
it's
but hopelessness is actually sinful, isn't it?
despair.
Yeah.
So we can sin against hope in two ways. By despair.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't be saved. Or perhaps a more common one is the sin of presumption.
Okay.
Where you think,
Oh yes.
so you just think, I'll be saved.
Everyone's going to heaven.
Oh, everyone's. Isn't life grand?
Yep.
I'm going to heaven.
Yep.
Everyone's going to heaven. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yep.
God is merciful.
Yes.
That's the sin of presumption.
Yep.
So both are sins against hope.
Yes. Okay.
And so hope is crucial and a wonderful gift to cultivate. So we need to do acts of hope and trust. I trust in you, Lord. I trust that all will be well.
And what great knowledge that we can pray for a stirring up
Of hope.
of hope, even if we are tending towards despair.
Yeah.
We can pray for that increase in stirring up of faith and hope, and we can pray for the infusion of the virtues.
Yeah. So hope is a Christian realism in light of eternity.
Yeah.
Things are bad. Absolutely, name them, they're bad.
Yeah.
But God's in control.
Amen.
God knows what He's doing. So that's the virtue of hope. And then love is, we could speak all day about
Well,
love.
we could. I mean, it's the greatest of all the virtues, as I understand it.
Well, it is because it's the only one that'll last.
Yeah, that was a really interesting thing that I discovered. I forget where it was. It would have been in a podcast somewhere. That all those other virtues are not needed in heaven, but the one that will remain is
love.
Is charity. Is love.
Yeah, because God is love.
Yes.
God's not faith. He's not hope. He's love.
He's love.
And so love will remain. And
so all of these virtues are actually ordered to and progressing towards love.
Yeah. So love is the crowning virtue.
Yeah.
And by love here, there's all varieties of aspects of love.
Yes, I understand the Greeks had 4 versions.
Yes.
Of
So
love.
yep. But the one we're talking about here is what's called is the supernatural love.
This is agape.
Yeah,
the
agape or caritas in
okay.
Latin.
Yep.
So charity.
Yes.
And I mean, using charity in English, it probably doesn't carry the full weight these days. But
because what we're talking about here is the image of Christ on the cross, right?
Yep.
It's a complete self-emptying
love, which is not natural
for the other.
for the other.
Yeah.
Because
Not
most
for
of
self.
the other loves are
Yeah.
self-centered in a certain way.
Yes.
So there's a
Yes.
natural love that
Yep.
that I have for a hamburger, or
Yes.
a natural
yes,
love
I'm
that a
with you there.
mother has for a child, for
Indeed.
example. There's not much moral worth there, but it's
Yeah.
a natural love. There's a friendship love, which is a common interest love. So again, there's a bit of selfishness there. It's,
Yep.
It's not a bad thing. None of these are bad, but it's
Yeah.
they're natural in that sense.
Yes.
So the friendship love, and then eros, which is erotic love, a love that takes you out of yourself, and is a good thing, but obviously is needs to be tempered. And then agape or caritas is this highest love, the love of laying down your life for the other.
Yeah, I believe it was Aquinas who defined it as willing the good of the other.
Yeah, willing the good of the other.
Yeah.
And in that sense, forgetting yourself.
Yeah, and involving the will there too, the free will. I choose love, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And
absolutely.
love is one of is the strangest of virtues. In order to get more, I've got to give more away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, again, we need to practice it. So it's a virtue.
Yes.
So it'll become a limp muscle if you don't practice that. So you deny yourself for the other is really important.
Fantastic. Well, we could talk for hours on this subject, and I hope we will in future podcasts. I think we could probably talk for an hour on each and every one of the main 7 virtues, probably longer. But we're going to have to wrap it up for today. This has been a great overview, and I can't thank you enough for giving me some of your time and your knowledge. Thank you for being one of my mentors.
No, thanks, Matthew. It was an absolute pleasure.
Now, for people to get a hold of you or find out more about you, you are on the Parousia website as one of our speakers, but they can also go to Campion College. What's the website?
So www.campion.edu. Yes, my goodness. It's a lot when I say websites.
That's right.
But you just, you can look it up pretty easily these days. But
Yes.
and it's a brand new website too, so
Yeah.
it looks looking very nice.
Have you ever noticed that saying World Wide Web is easier to say than www?
No, I haven't, but I think you're right.
And of course, we should mention again the early offer scheme.
early offer scheme
Yep.
for these next couple of months. So
Yeah, so this
get in early.
podcast should be released within the week. So when it is released, it's topical. So
Yeah.
check out the website.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Thanks, Matthew.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Morrissey, once again, thank you so very much, and I look forward to future conversations.
Thank you, Matthew.